So now that we've done that, the next thing is we've worked on these images. Let's just assume that all of these images have been edited to our satisfaction. We're now back in Bridge with our edited images as we want them. Good to go. We need to export these things out to give them to our clients, whether our client happens to be our inkjet printer behind us at another desk, or whether it happens to be a Flickr, or they're going to any other website, or they're going to Facebook, or they're going to a photo lab, all that kind of nonsense. How do we get these guys into a file format that other applications or places can make use of? And in order to do that, I want to show you something that I think is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to select all of my images because I want to essentially export all of these guys out. So what I'm going to do is I've got these guys selected. I go under the Tools menu. We were here earlier when we were talking about the metadata and all that kind of stuff. If you find that you've imported your... Listen to me for a second. If you find that you imported your images but you didn't rename them, or you're going through the process of renaming all of your files because you've come up with a new naming convention that you think is going to work, all you have to do is come in and choose the batch rename. Cool. So I'm going to come down here to Photoshop and I'm going to choose Image Processor. This batch and that batch are two different things. I'm going to choose Image Processor from in here. That's going to switch us over into Photoshop. All right, so here we are in Photoshop with the image processor, and we've got 4 sections in here. Let's talk about the first one, select the images to process. By default, if you had them selected in Bridge, you'll see process files from Bridge only, and then it says in brackets how many you have. All right, so open first image to apply settings. No, don't think so. Select a location to save the processed images. Save in same location or select a folder. Well, it's safe to put them in the same location because, well, you'll see. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put these guys in the same location. Now, I can actually export out JPEGs, I can export out PSDs and TIFFs all at the same time, straight from Bridge, without going into Camera Raw for each individual image and do all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these guys up to a value of 12, and I'm going to limit the pixel width or height based on its orientation to 800 pixels. So I've chosen to resize this, and because they are going, these ones anyways are going to the web, then what I want to do is I want to convert these to sRGB. So let's say I wanted to have something smaller for the client to be able to use in a print brochure, thumbnail kind of a thing. They need that really quick because that's going off the press, and then they'll ask me for the larger finished products later on. So what I can do is I can generate some TIFFs. Now, these are going to be thumbnail size, so I'm going to reduce them from their original size, and I'm going to drop them down to 1200. Tab 1200, tab out. So there we go. I'm also going to compress these, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose also to create my full-size PSDs right away. I'm not going to resize them. I want them to come out right away so I don't have to come back later when the client gets in touch with me and says, okay, now what we want to do is this, 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 and this. All right, I've already got my PSDs will be created at this point in time. The 4th section down here is kind of neat. We want to include our ICC profiles. We don't need to put any copyright info because that was included in our metadata. And this guy has got to be the coolest. If you have an action, now I can't perform the action on every one of these guys, but if I was just doing stuff for the web, only for the web, and I didn't want people to be able to steal my images and all that kind of stuff, I could probably come in here, choose an action, come into one of my post-production things in here and choose copyright if I had a copyright one in here somewhere. So I could do that kind of thing. I don't want to at this point because I'm creating all of them at once, but because it is an action, I can always go back into Photoshop and select these guys and run that. Or I can actually just turn these guys off and run the JPEG and put the copyright, semi-transparent, embossed, bevel and embossed, kind of a glass bubbly logo going through the image. So you can still see the image, but you can't use it for any other purposes but viewing. If I happen to find that I'm doing this on a regular basis for client ABC, I can come in here and choose to save. And then I would call this one File Names Client ABC. And then I would hit Run. So now that Image Processor has finished doing its job, all right, we're back over in the Collections section over here from where we started with the Image Processor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my Favorites section down here. I'm going to go into my Images folder, which was where this collection was originally created from. And in here you can see that I have my raw files, I have my DRV folder, and I have my personal projects folder. I am going to go into my raw folder. Remember, in Image Processor, I indicated that I wanted the images that got generated, the JPEGs, the PSDs, and the TIFFs, to go back into their original folders. So this is what happens. I double click on this, and these are my original folders here. I'm just going to expand them out so we can see the individual names. And the first one was this guy here. 084, 085, 086, 087, and 88 were the folders that I got my collection from. So I'm going to double click on this guy, and you're going to see that this is what Image Processor does. It creates an individual folder based on the file extension that you're generating. So here inside the JPEG folder, I have the JPEGs that came out of that folder when I made that collection. Across the top here in the breadcrumbs, I'm going to come back over to here, and we can go into the PSD, and we can see that we have our PSDs. And again, we come in here and double click on the TIFFs, and here are the TIFFs that got generated from that Image Processor action. If I go back one level and come into the next one, you'll see again, everything is the same. And again, I think this is absolutely a stunning way to have the application work for us. If I had chosen to put the images into a different location, then in that different location directory, I would have had one JPEG folder, one PSD, and one TIFF folder, each of them having all 20 from the original collection. But because I decided to put them back into their original directories, then each individual directory created the JPEGs, the TIFFs, and the PSDs for only those specific images. I think that's absolutely fantastic. From that point, what I would do is I would come in here and I would drag those specific images. As an example, I would take these guys from the original folders and put it into their corresponding derivative folders. That way it makes most sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you.